Uh, I was trying to get a few things organized real quick, share a couple posts, and get everything ready and checking on a guest. So I do not have a guest for tonight. Let me go ahead and fix these settings. There we go. I do not have a guest for tonight. I'm going to go ahead and do the show anyway, just like I said. Give everybody a second to tune in. I went ahead and did a video last night for anybody that wants to check it out on game theory, how it actually functions, to sort of not just refute some of what other people have been saying since it's been in the headlines lately for some reason, but also in an effort to bring about discussion on it for people so that they will understand it better and be able to actually figure out what's going on with the world. So when it comes to tonight's episode, I'm going to start with the toe equation and how dichotomy logic plays and how that starts, how everything starts with dichotomy logic. And then we're going to transition from that into how it applies to game theory or basically everything else in life and why you have to account for things like fusion, etc., and the importance of equilibrium. So things like this sound boring when you put it in technical terms, but we're just talking about life. There is not a video that I can put out that is not just about life. So another thing, my bad, while I'm on the subject, happy Easter to everybody celebrating. I don't always do that, and I'll address that as well as far as the holiday thing, because this is my world, haha. When it comes to holiday stuff, I'm not always going to say happy holidays to every single person for every single holiday. I'm not going to be Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, this, that, and the other. Those I'm going to cover. I'm just, hey, Merry Christmas, I'm in a unique position as far as my religious beliefs. And again, we can get into that in another video. I've already discussed it previously, but I am very devout. I'm not Christian in that sense. I'm Jewish, but that comes down to my beliefs on the Messiah, and Christians are Jews, but Jews are not Christians. It's just the way logic works. It's how everything breaks down. So I've done videos on all that before. I don't want to get into it again. But happy Easter to everybody that does celebrate. I have a lot of family and friends that do. When it comes to tonight's episode, I want to focus on the dichotomy logic behind the toe equation, and how you have to account for fusion is the main issue with all these things. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome. So when you get into dichotomy logic, it applies to everything. That is the root of the toe equation. That's the thing that was being supremely missed here, and it's why mirror 2D to 4D geometry they were having so many issues applying it to the physics. So think in terms of string theory. Very simple, very basic. Point A, point B. The line is AB, okay? So this is a beginning and an end and then a middle. The middle exists because of the beginning and the end. There's always a third option because of your dichotomy. Put it in terms of birth and death and then life. People are always saying everything's a matter of life and death, but it's really birth and death, and life is the third dimension that exists because of the dichotomy. This applies in chemistry, biology, anything you deal with, all the way to politics and game theory, as I was talking about last night. So we understand the basic fundamentals of if yes, then no, if on, then off. Where we've messed up in science is rooted in the mathematics with mirror 2D to 4D geometry. It doesn't account for fusion. It doesn't account for these third options, the compromise, the hybrid, etc. And so no matter what field you're dealing with, there's a 3-domain system for cells. There's a bacteria and an archaea, your primary dichotomy. And then because there's prokaryotic, there's eukaryotic. Eukaryotic is the fusion option, the equal opposite to the dichotomy. This is the same thing as beginning, end, and middle. There's a beginning and an end, and then because there's a beginning and an end, there's a middle. This middle exists because of them. And when you get into biology, you have the same thing with a sperm, an egg, and a womb. Thermodynamic laws on equilibrium apply here that you can get into. So you only have a womb or a uterus if you have a zygote, a primary fusion of the sperm and the egg, and you only get an electron if there's a nucleus, a primary fusion of the proton and the neutron. And so there's an order of operations in the engineering, no matter what fields you're dealing with. When you get into less sciencey things like politics and game theory, The premise remains the same. You start with a dichotomy, the red and the blue. And as I said last night, they know this. It's been applied to decades for everything, all the way back to Bloods and Crips are red and blue. Coke and Pepsi are red and blue. Democrats and Republicans are red and blue. War games are team red and team blue. It doesn't matter what you're dealing with. There's always this dichotomy that everything stems from. The issue is, in reality, in the world around us, in every field of existence, there is always a third option, and it is due to the dichotomy. You can't ignore it. You can't erase it. It's part of the equilibrium. This leads to the equation, which spits in the face of mirror to 2D to 4D geometry, I understand, but this leads to the equation of if 1A, then 1B, and if you have a 1A and a 1B, then you have a 1AB, a middle, a hybrid, a fusion. There are three different options here. Mirror 2D to 4D tells you 1A, 2A, 1B, 2B, cuts middles in half and treats them as two separate things. It treats fusion and hybrids as two separate things. But what is a hermaphrodite? It's fusion. One baby, two genders. That is fusion. And so you have to account for it properly in the mathematics. You can't use something like mirror 2D to 4D where you cut middles in half. And so when you understand this equation, this is just about equilibrium. Okay, so you have proton and neutron and electron equals an atom. Yes, no, maybe equals choice. Beginning, end, and middle equals timeline. Birth, death, and life equals a lifespan. Up, down, and level equal height. Left, right, and center equal width. It doesn't matter what you're applying, biology, chemistry, etc. There's always third options. That is a true equilibrium. And so when you get into thermodynamics, you start with the zeroth law, which is that two thermal systems in equilibrium with a third system are in equilibrium with each other. What this is just a statement of is that you don't get a third option unless there's been a primary fusion. They have to be in symbiosis with each other. Remember the wording there. You have to have a primary fusion of your dichotomy or you won't get a third option. That's the nature of thermodynamics. But if you have a third option, you have fusion. Okay, this is what spits in the face of one electron theory is literally impossible because the electron isn't the primary atomic particle. It is a byproduct of the nuclear or the fusion between the nucleus here. For those of you that want to bring up a free electron, look up the definition of free electron. Free electrons are by definition electrons that have been kicked out of a valence shell. So they die immediately. You're watching it die. You're killing it. That's not how it naturally exists. And so you can kick particles together all you want to and create this slow or quick death of an electron and say, look, we're observing it outside the valence shell. That's like ripping a soul out of a body, okay? Yeah, you're observing it all right. You're observing it all the way to the grave. So when you get into the atomic structure, which most people can understand, you have to understand the operations here. Proton, neutron, electron, the dichotomy first. Your dichotomy is always first in the order of operations. You can't get a third system without it. So if the electron is the third system, it can't be the primary thing here. And so one electron theory can't actually be real. It can't apply. Halloween coffee mug. Shout out to my mom. She collects them. And I don't think men, for the record, just a side note, I don't think men have to buy coffee mugs. I think there's an agreement with God and your mother when you're a kid. And just at a certain point, you just attain, and your father, obviously, because everybody's dad drinks coffee, but you just attain them. And they show up and you're just like, I have too many coffee mugs. So this is my Halloween mug. A little bit out of season, I know, but I wasn't really looking. I just wanted a big mug. But anyway, with the laws of thermodynamics here, it disproves that, and looking at the existing laws, thermodynamics, it disproves one electron theory. It can't be possible. So I have literally proven one electron theory is completely impossible with existent thermodynamic laws. That's something that we can do, okay, whether anybody does it or not. And so when you look at any aspect beyond that, protons and neutrons are made out of quarks, okay? They're not even the primary thing here. So the subatomic particles are made of quarks, and there is also another byproduct function here. Understand, The third option always exists. So when you break down the chemical chain from the cell down to the quark, or you build it from the quark up to the cell, you're left with the same rule of three applying in every link of the chain. It's every single link. So down to the quark, you have two up quarks and a down quark equals a proton. Two down quarks and an up quark equals a neutron. There's three subatomic particles for either of them. Or, I mean, three quarks for either of them. The interesting thing about the quark patterns, they're in thirds. Quark patterns, an up quark is a positive 2/3 charge. A down quark is a negative 1/3 charge. Down to the charge of the quarks, you're dealing with thirds, okay? And then you have three subatomic particles, the proton, the neutron, and the electron. There's three of them. Again, dichotomy, fusion. Dichotomy, third option. With the quarks, you have up quarks, down quarks, and color quarks. I believe the other terminology for color quarks is clue. I'd have to look that one back up. But up quarks, down quarks, and color quarks. And there's another terminology like electron and valence shell, the dual terminology there. And so these quarks are made up of thirds, and then they make subatomic particles. And the subatomic particles, there are three of: proton, neutron, electron. They make molecules, atoms. Atoms can be isotopes, cations, or anions, positive, negative, or neutral. Three different types. The cations, anions, and isotopes make molecules, which can be heteronuclear, homonuclear, or polyatomic. There's three different types: heteronuclear and homonuclear making up your diatomic. You have polyatomic. I'm losing myself here. Heteronuclear, homonuclear, and polyatomic. And so your dichotomy is your hetero and your homo. And so that's three different types of molecules. Again, you have this rule of three all the way up the chain. And so it's diatomic. There you go. Heteronuclear and homonuclear are diatomic. Again, dichotomy, diatomic. And so with heteronuclear, homonuclear, and polyatomic, there's three options. They make cells. And then what do you have with cells? What does everybody know about cells that studies chemistry at all? A three-domain system: bacteria, archaea, and eukaryotic. Bacteria and archaea making up the prokaryotic. Again, the primary dichotomy, and because they exist, there's a third option that represents the many. If you need to understand any of this kind of stuff, understand in the mathematical sense or in the physical sense, looking at it on a piece of paper, is the string in string theory. What you actually have here is many options in the middle. Okay, so yes, you have a definitive beginning and a definitive end, a definitive birth and a definitive death. But the life, that's a lot of days. That's a lot of stuff. Okay, that's a lot of things happening. And so you have these endpoints, but birth is set. It's already happened. There's your past, present, and future. Again, three different things. The present exists because there's a past and a future. Otherwise, it would all be one thing. And so you have your starting point here with your point A. And then you have your point B immediately. It exists. If it exists, its equal opposite exists. So birth and death. And then life is in the middle. You don't know when you're going to die. The death doesn't happen yet, okay? And so it just stretches and stretches. Proton, neutron, electron. These are your basic, there's a proton, there's a neutron, and then there's electron. Okay, you make your atoms. There's three different types of atoms. There's multiple different types of atoms. There's positive, negative, and neutral. There's not just one thing. And so when you talk about how protons, neutrons, and electrons make an atom, the basic fundamental blueprint for an atom is the hydrogen atom. You're not just talking about hydrogen, okay? You're not only talking about hydrogen when you say that. And so when you bring up a link in this chain where you have three options that make this thing, that can be three options that make this thing, up and down the links of this chemical chain, there's multiple options when you break down an atom. There's multiple options when you break down a molecule. It's not this set finite thing. This is where the understanding of the equilibrium comes into play, and the understanding of dichotomy logic and how extrapolation works. Biology and gender is a great focus right now because everybody wants to fight over it, and so they pay attention to it. There are three genders. There's not two, there's not 1,000, there's three. There's man, woman, and hermaphrodite. And that's not just a human thing. It does occur in humans, but it's not just a human thing. This is basic biology 101. We know hermaphrodites exist, okay? So an executive order, and I'm not trying to just bash Trump, but an executive order saying there's only two genders means nothing. Means nothing. There are three. And so when you want to break down data, what's happening with all this gender stuff is they are zooming in, okay, and they're not establishing the parameters. They're losing the parameters here. You have men, you have women, you have a hermaphrodite, but a man can be masculine or feminine or neither masculine or feminine. A woman can be feminine or masculine or neither masculine or feminine. The same applies with the hermaphrodite, where you have your true hermaphrodite, which doesn't lean either way, and then a hermaphrodite that leans male or hermaphrodite that leans female. That breaks down. It keeps breaking down. It's fractal math at play in physics. Okay, it just keeps breaking down. You can keep reverse engineering or engineering, and so you are having conversations about biology and politics that are losing the parameters. Just the parameters don't exist. Nobody's paying any attention. And the same happens with chemistry a lot of the time, which is how you end up with mistakes like one electron theory. With one electron theory, and everybody's like, oh, this, if you look at the engineering, the actual engineering of itself and the laws of thermodynamics, one electron theory becomes impossible. Now, I've already put out videos backing up the equation previously, but to quickly address it, it's rooted in an understanding of the rules of exception, or the rule of exception, and Gödel's proof. So if it exists, its equal opposite exists. We understand dichotomy logic and how that functions. The rule of exception states that all rules must have an exception to be valid. Okay. Well, where's the exception? That has to have an exception. And you might say, well, no, it can be an exception to yourself. No, it can't, because of Gödel's proof. No rule can validate itself. No set of axioms can prove its own consistency. The math isn't about the math. It's about the world around you. The math applies, okay? And so you've got Gödel's proof telling you that the rule of exceptions cannot validate itself. It can't. It's not allowed. The rules don't allow it. You just can't do it. And so we know these things. We've accepted these things, but we have not put them together. And so, again, you're left with a dichotomy here. And a third option, a keystone rule, and that is the TOE equation. What happens is you have to validate them. And so the rule of exception states that all rules must have an exception to be valid. Okay, well, it has to have an exception because of Gödel's proof. So what's the exception? One rule that has no exception. One rule that validates itself. That's the exception to the rule that no rules have or that all rules must have an exception. You need a rule that doesn't. In the case of Gödel's proof, no set of axioms can prove its own consistency. One must, okay? But it can't be the rule of exceptions itself. These exist concurrently, okay? They exist at the same time. You can't say this rule exists now and not that one, or that rule exists now but not this one. They have to exist concurrently, or one of them is wrong, okay? So I can't tell you that, I can tell you that gravity is true and it works in our environment. Technically, it works in space, but there's not a lot of gravity when you're out in open space. Okay, it's limited. Yeah, Mark, I don't know who you are, dude. I'll just let me do you a solid, Mark. Let me go ahead and remove you. There we go. If you don't like my channel, then just don't listen. But anyway, so when you get into Gödel's proof and the rule of exceptions, and I'm sure that guy doesn't even know who Gödel was, Gödel's proof and the rule of exceptions, they both have to be valid at the same time. You can't just pick and choose when you want to apply. And so the rule of exceptions has to have an exception, which is one rule without an exception, and Gödel's proof has to have an exception, which is one set of axioms that proves its own consistency. You're left with the TOE equation. One rule that proves its own consistency, one rule that validates itself. This is a keystone rule, and it holds the whole thing together. Without it, essentially, Gödel's proof is wrong, and the rule of exceptions is wrong. That's how that functions. And so when you get into any other subjects trying to apply the equation, it's not about the math. The math is never about the math. It's just an equation. It's just a format, or what have you. And so when you have a theory of everything like this, an equation like this, it's just rooted in dichotomy logic, accounts for fusion, and also accounts for game theory and equilibrium work. You have to be able to apply it to the physical world around you. It can't just be specifically to this. And so game theory, Nash's equilibrium, part of what plays here is the greater than sum being generated. So as applied to the TOE equation, it's proton, neutron, electron equals an atom. An atom is the greater than sum of the individual components. When you get into biology, the baby is the greater than sum generated from the sperm, egg, womb, from the equilibrium. That is equilibrium work, and thermodynamics at play. It is all true, valid. With NASA's equilibrium, a greater than sum is always generated. So birth, life, and death equal a lifespan. A beginning, a middle, and an end equal a timeline. Yes, no, and maybe equals a choice, just like proton, neutron, electron equals atom. Now, when you understand the equilibrium work here and you understand the format in game theory, which the government does, and they apply it to everything, you might think to yourself, okay, let's apply it to war and see how this works. And that's where you get into what I was talking about last night with game theory applied to incorrect things and how equilibrium work actually functions. So game theory started, and I'm just going to do part of last night again. Game theory started with oligopoly. That's what Jonathan Nash was challenging. He ended up spitting in the face 50 years of mathematics. I'm sure you've all seen the falsified version of his life in A Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe. He wasn't a good dude. Yeah, and it wasn't just the schizophrenia. Let's just leave it at that. But he did great work. And with game theory, it's about maximizing potential. That's what it's for. That's what it's about, maximizing potential. Here's an equilibrium. Here's how to maximize it. Here's how to get the best results out of it, the most, right? But understand the terminology right there. I say best, but it's really just most. It's quantity, not quality based. Okay, that is game theory. You have to understand this. And so when you apply it to war, what you're ending up with is Coke and Pepsi. Coke makes $100 a year. Pepsi makes $100 a year. But if they compete against each other, they make like $1,000 between them. Okay, or more, or a little bit less. But no matter what, there will be more money generated than they would if they competed, or if they didn't compete at all, if they operated separately. So Coke and Pepsi get together and they provide false competition with each other. Okay, red and blue, false competition. And what this does is it causes everybody to focus on them. Okay, Democrat and Republican, the same thing. It causes everybody to focus on them. You need the false competition. And so this generates all of the money. Okay, they make tons and tons more money this way. When you apply it to politics, it generates more votes, more of the voting pool. So if you want to function in economics, you want to create fake competition. Okay, just like a comedian and a heckler. If you think I'm wrong, it applies to everything. A comedian and a heckler. They pay a heckler to come in to start making fun of them, and then they have somebody to make fun of that's not really going to be mad at them, and they go at it back and forth, and this gets the crowd interested, and then more people are involved, and then other people mess with the comedian, right? That's how it functions. More energy. And so with game theory and these things applied to politics, they are generating more votes. If they compete against each other, false competition, they get all of the voting pool. Okay, they take all of it. And so it's functioning just fine for Coke and Pepsi. You see it working for Coke and Pepsi. They own everything, okay? The same is true of the Democrats and Republicans in politics, bringing you to war, okay? Game theory applied in all these other ways with our adversaries. We are constantly in a fight with Russia and China, a three-way fight here, where they have been posturing for decades to be our opposition. And then the third guy, he gets the scraps, okay? So what we do is we try to control this opposition. When one of them gets too strong, we try to make the other one our competition. When they get too strong, we try to make the other one our competition. This is to try to bring down their share of the pie, okay? It would be like if Coke and Pepsi with RC, if every now and then when Pepsi started making too much money or Coke started making too much money, they started competing with RC instead and ignoring the third one so that their share comes down and their shares go up. It's all manipulation, and that's what it does. And that's what they're doing every day with computer programming and AI at this point. They are doing everything they can. The AI is going to end up schizophrenic because of it. I hate to tell you. Get ready for Skynet. But when it comes to game theory applied to war, they are trying to do something that you cannot do in war that you might be able to get away with everywhere else. So we know people lie, we know people cheat, we know people steal. When it comes to economics, there's a level of record, okay, a level of record that you can keep track of with the mathematics and the numbers and all this stuff, and you can say that we're in control of it, we know what's going on. When it comes to game theory and war, you have to spy. You have to spy. You're not going to get all the information. They're not going to give you all the information. So you start spying, and then they start spying, and then they start spying on them, and then everybody's spying on each other. You're already creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. This is part of what drove Jonathan Nash to schizophrenia. Game theory catered to his schizophrenia. It drove him nuts, I'm sure. And so when you start looking for all the information and trying to possess all of the information, you want all of it. Now everybody's already getting schizophrenic. They're already getting on edge. They're already poking and prodding each other, okay? But here's the issue on a scientific level. Game theory relies, if the technical definition of all this stuff with Nash equilibrium, etc., the greatest desired result is achieved when everyone does what's best for themselves and then the group. It's all rooted in the idea that a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, period, okay? So up until then with oligopoly, in order to challenge certain other countries, etc., we have been trying to push the narrative, everybody do what's best for the country. Everybody do what's best for the government. And that's a very communistic take on it, obviously, and it was wrong, which is why Nash is accepted now. We know that in order to maximize the potential of the group, you have to maximize the potential of the individual. If we don't have affordable houses, we can't reach our maximum potential. So all of this is a failure at that point. Like it's all about the individual nature of man, the individual components. And so with an understanding of what the rule means, what does this mean with war? Well, it means that people have to know what's best for themselves. Does anybody like know ultimately what's best for yourself? So they have to absolutely know what is best for themselves, and then they have to do what is best for themselves. I hate to tell you this. I know a lot of people. I've been around for 38 years plus, almost 39. And people don't do what's best for themselves. People don't even know what's best for themselves half the time. And so game theory now, applying it to war, requires that they know what's best for themselves and choose to do so. That's flawed already, but even if they did know what was best and they did choose what was best, they would then have to not have any external factors affect or impact their decision making. So a guy's wife cheats on him, his dog dies, his son doesn't get into college. All of these things will affect him playing the game. So he knew what was best for himself last week. He was going to do what was best for himself. This week, he's really upset. So he's not going to do what's best for himself. He's having a bad day. These are the things that one little thing ruins game theory. One little bit. I mean, you think that's wrong. It's a little bit of poison that does a lot of damage, you know? It's always stuff like that where you try to control this instead of naturally just absorbing the data, inputting it, taking it as it comes, and responding with an action, with an action reaction level that includes some prerequisite, some already known details. But you cannot apply game theory to war. And here is the other reason, and this is the other ultimate reason why it fails. The maximum potential of war is total destruction. And so again, to stress the point back to the beginning, game theory is about maximizing the potential. And all of this work states that the maximum potential of the group is reached through the maximum potential of the individual components. And it also states that competition is good. Competition is good with these things put together. And so you try to create competition, which is starting a war, and then you maximize the potential, which is total destruction. Why is any of this good? So if you're going to apply game theory to war, you should be trying to use it to minimize, to calm things down, to not reach a maximum potential. But they don't appear to understand that aspect of it. They just seem to try to apply it and then collect data and then they input the data, and it creates a situation or a scenario where they have to do something else, and that makes it worse, and they have to do something else, and that makes it worse. This is the schizophrenia that Jonathan Nash suffered from. It really is. When you think about the TOE equation, I want you to try to think about it in those terms, with equilibrium work, with dichotomy logic, with fusion, that there's always third options, and that erasing third options destroys the entire equilibrium and all is lost. To give you a physics principle behind that, or a scientific principle, the theory of evolution, the other TOE, the theory of evolution, that when you look at how we evolve, there's different principles that you can learn, and one of them is that over specialization leads to stagnation. If we were ever all Democrat, nobody's a Democrat. If we were ever all Republican, nobody's a Republican. If everybody was all good, there's no such thing as good. If everybody's all bad, there's no such thing as bad. Conformity ruins the equilibrium. Conformity, everybody being the exact same, destroys a system. And so trying to conquer and this, that, and the other, it works when both sides are equal and they're balanced out and they're at a stalemate. But the second one of them gets an edge and pushes for the victory, the game's over. The game's over. Everything will collapse. This is entropy, another thermodynamic law. And there was a guy that just did a video here recently. I can't remember his name. I'll try to look it up. But he explained how entropy is applied to society and how this functions politically. It functions in our country specifically, where as you grow and you grow, the chaos is going to expand. The chaos is going to get worse. It's because of more option, more selection, more this, more that. And so you do reach a precipice or cusp where things get way out of hand because of too much diversity. And then you try to rein it back in. But the goal is a balance to avoid both extremes. Is to avoid way too much diversity and way too much chaos, and way too much conformity and way too much order. And you see that through the lens of Rome. There was a level of conformity that could not be maintained. They tried to push forward, and it made it worse. But these are all scientific principles at play. This is how math functions when you actually apply it to the world around you. And so the TOE equation, it's the theory of everything. It has to apply to everything. You have to be able to work equilibriums with everything. All of this stuff is rooted again in dichotomy logic, diffusion. The format itself is 1A and 1B is your dichotomy. 1AB is your middle, your fusion, your hybrid, your third option. And then your 1C in the separated parentheses is a representation of Jonathan Nash's work, which is that equilibriums generate a greater than sum. So dichotomy, fusion, equilibrium. That is the equation, 1A, 1B, 1AB, 1C. I've got it written down with the addition symbols and all that. But if you understand that, then you understand game theory works. You understand that it's currently applied to everything. Then you know that using game theory in economics is going to make more money. Using game theory in politics is going to make more votes. Using game theory in war is going to make what? More destruction. That's what it's going to do. So these are things that need to be understood before people start trying to play with toys they don't understand in science, basically. Short of that, I've got different things I'm working on right now. Again, I want to put out another book in the very near future. I've got all different stuff written. I have not put it together collectively. I've had other things I've been working on with my health issues and going to doctors and all kinds of stuff. I'm fine. It'll be fine. But I have been staggered in my ability to move forward with all this. So I'm just maintaining a basic level of consistency and trying to make sure there's not too much gaps in between the information that I'm putting out, the videos or what have you. But there will be another book. The original book that I put out, A Hand with the Toe, it was a foot, so I fingered it. I don't even have the bank account attached to that book. And I have to sort this out because I won't even get any money if you buy the book. I don't care. It serves as a proof. It was listed as part one of the series, and it's meant to serve as a proof of the work. And I am going to be extrapolating and putting out. The next one will be a more comprehensive long form, and then I will break it down into field work. So it'll be theory of everything mathematics, theory of everything chemistry, theory of everything biology. It will be separated by field, and I want to sort of do a lesson plan thing with it. But it's a process. It's taken a little bit of time. As far as the YouTube streams go on this, I don't care if I ever make any money on this. I just want to do it. I just want to come out here every week and just do what I love. This is what I enjoy doing, is talking about science. Not 100% of the time, but a lot of the time. And so I like doing videos like this. I have no plans to do a donation tab. I have no plans to do a store or this, that. I am a stupid man when it comes to that. I just don't care. I'm just going to do the videos and hope that fans are having a good time with it. But the book will be something I'm doing moving forward. And as soon as I have the opportunity, hopefully that by the end of this year, I will be able to put together a cohesive patent for one of the things that I've been working on. I've got a few different concepts, but one of them specifically dealing with energy. I'd have to play with things to truly be able to put together something real. But anyway, so there will be a book and there will be that, but I'm not going to talk about that. And then there's going to be these videos every Sunday, and I have stuff throughout the week. I'm currently in pen and paper mode as far as trying to set up stuff for the week and saying, can I do this? Can I do that? What's a good time? But I'm sort of just doing the rest random outside of the Sunday night thing. Like last night, I wasn't planning on doing it, and I was just like, I need to address game theory specifically. So there will be more of that. There should be more random videos. Plan on this being solid every Sunday, continuing all the time. Whatever you all want to talk about. That's another thing. So religion, politics, science, it doesn't matter. Whatever you all want to talk about, you can leave a comment. I'm pretty sure you can email me on here. If you don't want to leave a comment, that's fine. But if there is a specific math problem or chemistry thing or whatever you're interested to, religion, politics, does not matter. If there's a subject you want me to address, let me know and I'll talk about it. Like as far as the war stuff goes, this is the issue. This is a science channel where I do a science stream. I don't have a huge following yet. This is relatively new for me. I don't have other podcasters I'm doing things with. And so I'm trying to remain focused on strictly science and how it applies. If you wanted, I could get into the entire Ukraine war and talk about Joe Biden and all this stuff. Or I can get into the Israeli war and Iran war and talk about all that. It's obviously occurring. I obviously know about it. I could discuss it. There are 20 channels on my feed every day already talking about all of these things. They're not talking about what I'm talking about. But Canadian Prepper does bring up game theory. And I will say again, if he promises to never bring up game theory again, I will go to his store and buy something. I will just do it. He has to promise really hard though. But yeah, I'm sitting here watching all these channels and they're already addressing so much of it, and you're just getting bombarded. It's nonstop war, another thing. And you should be paying attention to it, but you should be growing a garden and you should be learning things and you should be trying to improve your life in some way. Sitting around just watching all of this stuff all day and panicking is not doing anybody any good. You need to stay focused on your life and what's in front of you and see what you can do to improve yourself to survive it. Because I will say this war is going to get worse like the other ones. Every time they do this, they say it's to prevent a war for our grandkids, and then the next grandkids have to fight it. None of us are stupid. We know how this works. And the issue is when I talk crap about this war, people that are on the left will jump on my bandwagon. If I talked crap about the Ukraine war, they would have hated me, and the people on the right would have jumped on my bandwagon. I cannot seem to keep anybody happy enough, no matter what I say to criticize either side or to even give, accolades. I still am not keeping anybody happy with it. So I'm going to be honest about how I feel about everything. But in the grand scheme, I think this war is going to get worse. For today, this is how bad the script is. We're not at war, but we're at war. But if we were at war, but we're not at war, they keep doing this crap. And then we're at war, but we're winning the war, but the war's almost over. It was supposed to be 2 days, but a month. In my opinion, some of this is to cover up Epstein. Doesn't matter. It's happening. There's nothing I can do to stop that. And so when I'm looking around at what happens, I see a president that just came out yesterday and said, we have complete control over Iranian skies. We're destroying them. They can't do nothing. We're the man. And then they knocked down an A-10 Warthog, an F-15, and chased off 2 Blackhawks. And I'm watching the media do a victory lap because we saved a pilot, 2 of them. That's not a victory, guys. This is political spin, and this is, if you want a conspiracy theory, apply game theory to this. It's like they're talking crap to get them to attack us. Like, just stop. This has gotten out of hand. It's going to keep getting out of hand, and it's an odd thing when we're constantly watching them say one thing and do another every day, and it's spinning out of control. It's only a statement on the entropy and the chaos and how it's all getting worse. It's just every day a complete 180, every day a new thing, and they're still not doing anything about Epstein. Still not doing anything about that. I just find it odd that within a 24-hour period, we went from we own Iranian skies to they're shooting down all our shit, pray for our soldiers, and hate Iran. No, you were waving it around. You were bragging. You were talking about how we're running things. Don't cry now. I'm not gonna. My entire family is filled with military vets. Every uncle, I mean, literally almost every uncle on both sides of the family, and my dad. Um, I just I understand the game that's played, and some of them do, with the hide behind the troops mentality. And you can't criticize the government and what they're doing, because then you're criticizing the soldiers, and you got to support the war, because if you're not supporting the war, then you're not supporting the troops. My entire family is filled with vets. Y'all can kiss my ass. I'm going to say what I want. I don't care. And if you're asking, if you're wondering, if you want to know why I did not enlist, it's because I have 24 diagnoses and they would not have me anyway. So when it comes to my commentary and all this, I get it. A lot of people, they have to support the troops. They can't get over. I've got to. I am opposed to this war. If you're coming on the news every night and you're saying, hey, let's bomb the hell out of these people and brag, don't come to me and tell me to cry about it later. Just, I'm not going to do that. And so that's about the extent of what I'm going to talk about with that. I do not like what's going on. I don't like where it's headed. I would encourage people to buy gardening seeds. I would encourage you to plant a garden and to build a fence if you need to, or to level out the yard, or whatever you have going on. I would encourage you to focus on that, because the politics are near irrelevant. The monster is just getting out of hand. It is chaos, and it's like they want it. It's like everybody wants it. But short of that, I think that's it for the night. The book will be, I'll give you a date later. I'll give you release dates and on everything later. But it's going to be a little bit of time. I need a few more months to finish up everything that I'm working on to be able to put more stuff out like that. Other than that, any ideas, send them to me, and I'm going to go enjoy the rest of the day. Happy Easter. Hope everybody's doing well. Take care. All right.